Hello and welcome to the Comically Incompetent Podcast. My name is Doug.
And I'm Ben.
And this week is our second episode ever, so we're going to be talking about Moon Knight. Along with Moon Knight, we decided to get really creative and drink a beer called Blue Moon.
You need creativity in the biz, folks.
Yeah, the word moon is there, so we are going to drink Blue Moon.
Oh, I didn't get it till now.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
So Ben, why don't you talk a little bit about who Blue Moon? Oh God,
I'll tell you all about Blue Moon.
Tell me a little bit about Moon Knight.
All right, so Moon Knight is a character that was actually kind of on the list when I came up with, like, when we were talking about the idea for this podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, it's one of those characters that's pretty cool. I like him. He randomly is coming up, like, all in pop culture, and I feel like a lot of people don't know him. A lot of people are fans of him and don't even know him, which is totally chilling, but it's interesting.
And because the Disney Plus TV show is coming out.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Is that one going to be animated or is that one going to be...
No, that's going to be live action. Yeah.
Pretty darn cool. All right, so Moon Knight, or Mark Spector, as his real name or fake name, depending on who he is.
A little on the nose there, Spectre, but all right.
Yeah, right, dude. That's the way it goes with his little Spectre suit.
Oh, Jesus, that's what it's called.
No, but a
a
Spectre is a thing in certain militaries that's stealthy, and he's kind of a stealthy fellow. But yeah, so kind of going into him, he got his original start. He was a Marine in the United States Army, and he was stationed, I believe, in the Middle East. Depending on which comic book you ask, could be Middle East, could be Southeast Asia. He was dishonorably discharged during his service. He was a bit of a violent fellow. He's a violent guy, and as you go to learn through his story, he actually is a schizophrenic, which means that he has kind of trouble in differentiating exactly who he is at what point.
Okay.
It kind of goes interestingly with his power, as we'll get into. After that, he became a mercenary / soldier for hire, as some may call it. He was very good at that, very, very good at that. But same thing, that schizophrenia kind of followed him. So he had a hard time adjusting to that. People had a hard time trusting him in the mercenary outfit. So they eventually left him for dead in the Egyptian desert, which is brutal.
Yeah, that's rough.
It's like, why are you doing that, dude? Come on, we're gonna take care of our peoples. He's left for dead, just starving to death and dehydrating to death in the middle of the desert. And a spirit appeared in front of him, and that spirit was Khonshu, is I believe the correct pronunciation. That is the Egyptian god of the moon. Which is where so we start getting in with Moon Knight.
Blue Moon.
Yeah, exactly. Egyptian god of the blue moon, the beer god. See, so he saved him and gave him his, what most people consider to be like moon-based powers. The powers of Khonshu are basically just strength in general. You know, like it's not necessarily like, oh, we can fly, and not necessarily this or that. It's just
control the tides.
Yeah, like that would be a good one though.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, he got his powers and then pretty promptly headed back to New York. Because that's where he's from. He's a New York based. As, believe it or not, every now and again, Marvel heroes will be New York based.
Yeah, just a small, like 90% of them.
Small 90%. Some are in San Francisco though, which is pretty cool. Cycling back to that, so this is in fact a Marvel character. Originally penned by Doug Munch, I believe is the correct pronunciation. And the artist was Don Perlin. They actually did a pretty good amount of work for Marvel in the 70s. First comic of this was in 75.
Okay.
And he was a villain, I believe, in that.
I didn't know he'd been around for that long.
Yeah, he's been around for like forever, but he's one of those, kind of like the Guardians. The Guardians have been around for a while. Rocket Raccoon and Groot, actually.
I've been around for a long time.
Yeah, like I think Rocket Raccoon's first was in like the 50s.
Yeah, because I remember when Guardians of the Galaxy came out and like nobody knew who the Guardians were.
Nobody knew who they were.
Okay, so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
probably,
same kind of
relatively,
thing.
Yeah.
So you'd only know him if you were like big Marvel fan, and then he randomly got this big pop culture thing, and then Disney Plus picks him up, and bing, bang, boom. So a little more kind of directly into him. What powers comes with being the Moon Knight? So it's a very similar story to a lot of characters. He's off on an adventure, wounded, saved, given powers, comes back to his home, and decides he's going to be a vigilante, essentially, in his homes. From his time as a soldier and as a mercenary, he got pretty darn good marksman skills. He's pretty handy with a gun, pretty good with thrown weapons as well.
But that doesn't come with his Moonlight, like Moon Knight based powers. That was something he had before.
Yeah, this is something he has before. Because of the Moon Knight, that does make him better at most of the things that he's good at.
It didn't give him really anything new. It just kind of enhanced what he had. In a way.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. There's a few tiny itty bitty things that are a bit inhuman about his powers more so.
Okay.
He's also expert detective. He got that during his mercenary time. Or his time as a mercenary. Mercenary time. Oh, good time. He's very adept with most melee and ranged weapons. So, expert marksman, but he also, akin to like Daredevil, he's really good at like thrown weapons. He actually has little like moon shurikens, which you just have to, right? You have to have a moon shuriken. Like,
if he didn't, I'd be pretty upset if he didn't have something
like
that.
Shame on the authors if he didn't have a moon shuriken.
Seriously. That's like superhero 101.
Yeah.
Little white moon shurikens, like crescent moon kind of thing. I like it.
Oh my gosh. So on to some of the more comic booky powers of this fellow. The first thing is his powers wax and wane with the phases of the moon, meaning he gets... I know, it's a really good joke. It's a really, really good joke. So essentially, he's strongest during a full moon, and he's weakest during a new moon. And as it waxes, he gets stronger, and as it wanes, he gets weaker.
I don't know the difference. Is waxing a full moon?
No. So a full moon and a new moon are on opposite ends of the spectrum. Waxing is when the moon is like becoming larger. Like if you look at it and you're like, oh, it's getting a little bit larger.
Yeah.
That's waxing. And then waning is when the moon is getting a little bit slower.
What do you mean slower?
I don't know why I chose the word smaller.
Oh, okay.
Smaller. That's what I meant.
I was really confused. I was like, does it slow down around?
Dude, the moon gets really slow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was okay. I know very few things about Moon Knight, but that was one of the things that I think is like hilarious about him is that he gets weaker and stronger based on the moon.
Right.
I feel like that's not a great superhero ability to have.
So not necessarily always is a benefit to him. I like he's not usually weakest at like he's never to the point where he's weaker than a normal human kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it is kind of unreliable, and I think what the authors were trying to do was kind of keep that schizophrenia as his character and really envision what would schizophrenia look like in a hero. You see it a bit in things like DC's The Joker. You see that's kind of I believe he's supposed to be a schizophrenic character. Am I certain about that?
I think in some iterations.
In some iterations he definitely is. And this is kind of the take on what if that was a good guy. I'm going to air quotes the good guy because he's pretty brutal. He's a brutal guy. The this one I would call like a legitimate superpower is due to his connection with the Egyptian god. He is incapable of being mind controlled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so even your Professor Xavier, Dark Phoenix, no matter what your kind of like telepathic power is,
that's pretty
can't
cool.
be mind controlled. Which is, I mean, that's certainly it's helped him a lot because a lot of the big bad boys in the Marvel universe end up mind controlling people and flipping them on each other, which is just rude. It's real rude.
Yeah, no, that happens a lot. That was the whole like Scarlet Witch X-Men debacle was her.
Yeah, she turns people on each other.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do that an episode on that, but that's like the connection I'm building in my head. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting where it goes.
Yeah.
As far as things that aren't necessarily superpowers but are additional information about the guy, so he has what's called a carbonadium suit. So carbonadium is another, like, I'm going to call it like a mystical metal. I think it's technically a technological metal in the Marvel universe, like vibranium or adamantium or anything like that. So that's what his suit's made out of. Okay. So it's pretty hard to penetrate. You got to really lay into that bad boy. He has a bunch of different weapons. He has scythes, which are pretty cool because you got to have a moon scythe.
Of course it's a moon scythe.
It's a moon scythe.
Oh, God.
You gotta have your moon shuriken.
Does he have a ship in the shape of a moon?
I don't think so, but that would be awesome.
That would be really funny if he did.
He's been on a bunch of different ships, though. He has been a part of many different factions that are really popular. He, of course, has been in the Avengers because...
Oh, okay.
I think everyone's
been in the
Avengers. Yeah, I was going to say,
it's not a hard club to get into.
It's not a hard club to get into. There was even a stint where he was in the Defenders, with like Luke Cage, Daredevil, and all them. He's not generally in the core group, but, he's a New York-based, not the most powerful dude in the world, which tends to be who's in the Defenders, Like, well, they're awesome, but,
no, that's fair. That's a fair assessment. Yeah.
They're dudes and chicks, And then He was in, which I'm sure we will talk about in many an episode. He was in a faction called the Midnight Suns, which is...
That's a dope name.
Isn't that
That's a dope name. Okay.
So the Midnight Suns are what I would call essentially the supernatural faction or the supernatural Avengers.
Okay.
So you don't end up seeing people like Captain America in there, but you see Ghost Rider is in there, Doctor Strange is in there, Blade, I believe, is in there at some points because he's a vampire hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one of my favorite factions. That's who he does the majority of his stuff. They do a lot with gods, demons, kind of things like that. Things that really, really fit his MO, as they would say. So, I have a question. What kind of people do you think he would fight? Now that I've given kind of a lowdown on him, does it seem like... Let's use a Spider-Man term here. Does it seem like an Avengers level threat? Is this kind of deal?
No, I don't see him doing like Avenger. In my mind, the way I see it is more like, I'm trying to like smaller, but like more like the smaller supernatural villains, like something that's not like a Punisher, that's a very physical, just, you know, kind of guy. But well, I know Punisher's not a villain.
Kind of like your anti-friendly neighborhood demons.
Yeah, no, he's not gonna fight like a Crossbones, you know, but he's gonna fight
not as
like.
much.
I can't think of anyone right now off the top of my head, but something like more of like the smaller supernatural ones. Because like I don't think they'd be like, "Hey, Galactus is gonna come, Moon Knight, get over here."
Call in Moon Knight.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna do that. I think it's gonna be more like, "Hey, some demons terrorizing Harlem. Can you go help out?"
Some demons terrorizing Harlem. Well, that's pretty darn accurate. He does handle a lot of the local demon kind of situations. That's kind of due to his connection with the gods. He himself doesn't necessarily force himself into that pocket, but it's one of those, like I was saying, he interacts with people like the Defenders. Nobody in the Defenders is really suited to handle like demons. It's not really their kind of speed, and so he'll get brought in those kind of situations. Okay. But he also is a big fan of beating up your local street thugs.
So he does like street thug. Like,
he does street thugs,
bank robbers kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, he has a lot of... Man, dude, all of his storylines are so sad. I'm going to be honest. It's like, he's very akin to like a Punisher-esque kind of character where many of his storylines begins with like, oh, he has this somewhat functional relationship. And then like, she gets murdered by like a gang. And then he goes on like a killing rampage, rampaging the streets of New York.
Okay.
Which that kind of leads into the, like going back to the whole schizophrenia thing. Not all of them are very friendly. This is a guy where sometimes he'll beat up a villain and tie him up, and then the cops will show up, and there it is. And then sometimes he roams New York with like a sniper rifle and just annihilates gang members.
Is that one of those things kind of like dependent on like maybe the moon cycle? If he's like, I guess, hold on, I'm gonna be smart, waning, and he's like more of like leaving the guy tied up, and kind of leave it to the cops to handle the rest, and maybe like on a waxing moon he's gonna go and just go absolutely nuts.
So it kind of depends.
That's just my guess.
Yeah, so the schizophrenia and the phase of the moon don't necessarily always sync up, but they have historically synced up in some very interesting ways where sometimes you do end up with him being very violent but very weak at the same token, and sometimes you end up with him being in like a very righteous, we need to save the world kind of mood, and he's at either his most powerful, and then it's like, oh my god, he has all this stuff. That's part of why I think his comic books were so interesting, is a lot of characters, once you set a precedent for how strong they are, you can't sway too much, or it just doesn't make sense. You know, you look at like a character like Daredevil, and they've always done a great job where like he's fighting dudes, and he's fighting like sometimes like ninjas and stuff, and like, but they know not to throw him against Galactus. They're like, that's not his wheelhouse.
I thought that was an interesting thing with the Avengers movies that we have in the MCU, is that you're taking like I know a lot about Captain America in the comic books, but if we're gonna go fight Thanos, like I don't know if I would think to put Captain America on that team, but they did a good job of kind of like showing you throughout the movies like he can keep up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be something they're going to have to do with like the Moon Knight series, because I know that Disney Plus is saying these are going to be brought into the movies as well at some point, is to kind of show like what he can handle, and that he can handle whatever the next cinematic event is going to be.
Fight on toe-to-toe with the Eternals.
Something like that, yeah. He can keep up with that, because I think that's going to be key in making sure that we, I guess in a way, at this point with this many movies is respect Moon Knight and think of him on the level of an Avengers level threat.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be something that they're going to have to do, is do a good job of showing him keeping up with the rest of these heroes that they're bringing into the MCU from now on.
Yeah, I'm kind of cautiously optimistic on that, because it is a big task to handle, especially because just generally like TV characters won't necessarily seem as strong and powerful as big cinema.
Yeah, which I think is something they failed at with Luke Cage, Iron Fist. I never once saw that and thought, I wish they could put them in the like new Avengers movie, because I don't see any of them keeping up with.
Yeah, really, none of them.
Any of them. So that's going to be, I think, a big thing they're going to really need to push.
Yeah.
With these Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel is showing like they can do it, and that's why we're making them now and putting them in later, kind of thing.
I think that's going to be incredibly interesting and incredibly important to watch.
Yeah.
I want to see more details on his television show too, because it has a lot of promise. I think it's going to be very good. Do we know who got cast yet?
I have rumors that we can go over later if you want.
I'd be
when we're done talking about the comic book version, I have some rumors that I can go over on my phone that we can talk about.
All right. Yeah, so to kind of bring it back to the comic book version, as we were talking about, usual villains are just kind of whoever's within sight. He doesn't head very far out, generally speaking. He's not a global guy. He is a New York City hero. Occasionally moves to other cities. You know, if he has a traumatic experience, I believe moves to Jersey in one of his iterations, has a traumatic experience there, moves back to New York, which is just the most depressing thing on the planet. He's an incredibly, I don't know, some of the things are pretty tough to watch. In general, once we get through the description of the story, or the character rather, I like to bring it back into who's this guy like, just in case people can't imagine still. I feel like, paint a pretty good picture. People will probably be shocked to find out he's a little like Batman. He is a little bit like Batman.
At least personally, that's what I pieced in as we were talking about it, was Batman, for sure.
At the end of the day, he's essentially Batman mixed with the Punisher. If Batman loved guns and was never not okay with killing. Which is sometimes Batman's rule and sometimes not. But
it depends. Are we talking Affleck? We talking Bale? That's the kind of...
Affleck will kill anyone. He's throwing people off bridges into fire pits. That guy's crazy.
Oh, yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, dude. Daredevil, right?
But I think a key difference here between Moon Knight and my favorite thing about Moon Knight, the difference between him and Batman, is that Moon Knight wears white.
That's true. Yeah, going back to his carbodium suit. That was one thing I failed to mention. He wears pure white hood, pure white suit, and often a white mask.
For the dopest reason. Can I say it?
Yeah, what's the reason, Doug?
So that his enemies see him coming.
God, he's such a confident guy.
I love that.
That confidence is inspiring.
Because Batman is like I'm fighting in the shadows. And Moon Knight is like, I'm here. And I'm going to beat the crap out of you.
I am fighting directly in front of you.
Like, you know exactly who's beating your ass right now.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. He's a very strong guy. That's honestly kind of the bulk of him. That's one of those things that I've always kind of been surprised by, is like, he has like this huge cult following. He's not necessarily the crazy, I mean, he's an intense guy, but he's not necessarily like the craziest superhero in the world, you know?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to him historically.
Yeah, he tends to be pretty consistent. You know, he's one of those characters that keeps going with what he keeps going with. You know, he's not doing crazy stuff every day. You know, he's not Captain America, where he's fighting Hydra one day, and then the next day he's on Jupiter fighting a Mad Titan. That wasn't Jupiter. That was Titan. That was Titan that he fights Thanos on.
They
Mad
fight
Titan. That's confusing, right?
They fight the Mad Titan on Titan.
On Titan.
At least in the movies.
Yeah, at least in the movies. They fight him everywhere in the comic books.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, because you say you've heard some rumors.
Yes.
And I think probably the most interesting thing about Moon Knight going forward is that we finally are going to get like a AAA quality, well-made Moon Knight television series.
If Disney Plus keeps the quality of like The Mandalorian with the rest of their
which was
stuff,
fantastic,
then I could definitely see this being pretty awesome. As far as the rumors go, it's rumored that Shia LaBeouf was being considered for the role of Moon Knight.
Interesting, because he does it. He just does it.
I mean, he's gonna be in that white suit going, just do it. But
Throwing dudes off buildings.
I think it could be great because I just saw that new movie he did, The Peanut Butter Falcon.
I heard about that. Was it good?
He did a phenomenal job.
For him having some odd moments, I actually really like Shia LaBeouf.
Oh yeah, he's great. I mean, he's definitely shown he definitely went through a struggle.
Yeah,
but he's come out of it. And he's doing some really good work.
It's always good to see actor bring back. I'd like that. I'd like that. I'd like to see him put on a little bit of muscle.
Yeah, he need to be a little bigger. But
yeah, Moon Knight's usually like a pretty good sized dude.
That's the only thing I'm curious about. He doesn't seem like the kind of actor to be like, do what like Kumail Nanjiani did and just get shredded.
That was impressive. That guy came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, I don't see Shia LaBeouf doing that. I feel like these are the kind of guy. It's like, I'm gonna do this on my terms, or I'm not gonna do it. So I think that'll be the interesting thing to see is if he does decide that he's gonna do.
I could see him getting the fit bug though. Did he look any bit bigger in the movie you saw him with?
No, he was pretty small, but that was kind of his character. He was kind of this like, it took place in like I think like Louisiana or Georgia or something like that, and he was kind of like this crab fisherman guy, and he was like strong. He had to do his job.
So it wasn't like he was scrawny.
Yeah, no, he wasn't scrawny, but he wasn't like buff.
He wasn't a unit.
No, he's not. I keep saying it, but just because that was mind blowing was Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah.
Because I was a huge fan of watching him in like Silicon Valley, and then just seeing him shredded one day for Eternals, which I'm very excited for. Okay, so on Moon Knight, for the next thing we know about the Disney Plus show is that there's one person connected to it so far.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jeremy Slater is on as a writer, and I believe possibly show running.
That name sounds really familiar.
A little worrisome. He did that 2015 Fantastic Four movie. He wrote it.
Why?
He also has some.
Rehires that guy.
He has other good stuff. He has the Umbrella Academy, that Netflix show.
That was really good. That was incredibly good.
He did that. He also wrote The Lazarus Effect. I don't know if you saw that horror movie with Olivia Wilde, and Donald Glover was in it, and Mark Duplass.
The Lazarus Experiment.
The Lazarus Effect he wrote, and it was really scary, and I thought it was really good. I don't think it was a box office hit, but I don't think horror movies tend to be box office hits.
Yeah, box office hit for a horror movie is like $10 million.
Yeah, and I think the only one I can think of personally is anything by Jordan Peele. And,
yeah, but even those, I think most of those opened at like 10 mil, which is a lot, but like is not a lot for a box office hit. You know what I mean?
And It Chapter 2.
Ooh, you know what? You're right. Yeah, that actually one was like a absolute commercial success.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how this guy does. Just considering his last Marvel project was kind of
But if the guy can do horror well, not that this is exactly horror, but this is a very dark, intimidating kind of character with dark, intimidating kind of sets.
Yeah.
So I see some faith there. I got some faith there.
I never saw the Umbrella Academy. How would that tie in with Moon Knight?
Pretty, as far as like thematically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty dark show, at least like color palette wise and everything. It was very, I'd say, like artistically shot.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty darn good. I think most people thought it was pretty darn good. So I gotta be honest, I'll take a leap of faith on him because he at least seems like he can do darker stuff, which like absolutely the Fantastic Four is not, in my opinion. I love the Fantastic Four. It's just it's not the same kind of material.
That movie specifically was just bad, and not because of it being a Fantastic Four movie, because it was an hour and a half long. They didn't get their powers till 45 minutes in, and they didn't use them till an hour 20 in.
I did think that movie was bogged down. Wasn't it bogged down by one of those deals where it's like, because it was Fox?
It was Fox.
Isn't it one of those where they have to like pump out a movie every like 9 years for the property, or they lose the property? I thought I had heard something about that. Yeah.
Possibly. I don't know. I just know that it was horrendous.
Yeah. No, so I'm hoping we don't get that version.
I don't think you would. I think Disney Plus, and now being an MCU product, I think Kevin Feige is maybe not putting his hand directly on this Moon Knight project, but enough that he's probably overseeing the process and being like, hey, maybe we don't do this, maybe we do it this way, kind of giving ideas and kind of maybe stepping in lightly every once in a while to kind of get. And I think on all these Disney Plus TV shows, I think that he's definitely is the father of the MCU.
I'd agree with that.
And I think he wants to kind of make sure that everything coming into the MCU is something that he wants to work with. Yeah. So all these Disney Plus shows have to hit a standard for him. So I think he'll definitely make sure that none of these shows flounder in any way.
I'm going to use what may immediately sound like a bit of a negative term, and I mean this as a positive thing. He seems like a bit of a pit boss when it comes to managing this, where he's very on top of it, and he's not going to let garbage slip through it.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some Marvel movies that I don't favor. I think Thor: The Dark World was...
Thor 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Who bleached his eyebrows?
I think those were just not great. I think that Ant-Man 2 was a little bit weak. But I think the reason Ant-Man 2 and Captain Marvel, both good movies based on good heroes, were not as good as the rest was because everyone was putting everything they had into Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And they kind of put Crew B out to do these two movies just to kind of fill the gap in between Infinity War and Endgame.
Well, I felt bad for the creators of Ant-Man 2 because in Civil War, you see Ant-Man go giant.
Yeah.
And that, like, kind of deflates him going giant in Ant-Man 2.
Yeah, that would have been a lot better of a moment if we hadn't seen him go. But
Right?
he went way bigger.
He did go way,
He went way
bigger.
bigger. But I think that's going to be something that Moon Knight, especially, because I think with the other MCU shows we have coming based on new heroes, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, because I feel like those are heroes that are so not nearly as known.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
But-
they're going to have to do a lot of work there, which
Yeah.
could go in their favor.
I think so, because I think not many people knew Iron Man in
Yeah,
2009.
no, it was a joke when Marvel came
yeah.
out and they're like, we're going to be making these movies, and they're like, Iron Man, and people are like, Iron Man?
Yeah.
And now he's like a beloved household name.
Oh, everyone's like, oh, my favorite superhero is Iron Man now.
Yeah.
Which, not knocking that, Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, fantastic.
couldn't have been
He was
better.
a perfect Tony Stark.
So I think that as far as casting has gone, they've always done a really good job of casting these heroes.
Yeah.
And I think it may seem out in left field. I know people were tentative when Ant-Man was coming out, and people were like, that's going to be ridiculous. And then Paul Rudd was Ant-Man. They're like,
That's a good point.
What? So I think as far as casting, I think Shia LaBeouf would be a fine cast, but I think you want someone who maybe has almost a little more of a horror acting background.
Yeah, I'd like to see someone that's done some dark stuff. Not necessarily that they have to be like horrendously dark, but something pretty serious, you know? I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think I have anyone off the top of my head that I can think of right now who'd be really good for it.
I can think of some buff dudes that would be
Oh.
cool to watch in it, but
just based off talking about it, the guy who plays Pennywise, Skarsgård.
oh
I think
yeah, I think he'd do a
He
good
might
job.
be pretty good.
He's
He's
got
got
a good job.
He can do kind of creepy, and he obviously played Pennywise really well.
Yeah.
I mean, the first It's one of my favorite movies, and I hate horror, and he was phenomenal film. I think he could do a really good job, and I think Shia LaBeouf could do a good job. I think
with some work.
I think he needs some work and maybe some lessons down from.
I'll put it this way:
above.
if they cast him based on your comments, I also have a very strong faith in the casting. If they cast him, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, because
I'll trust him.
I didn't I liked Chris Evans, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Chris Evans. And now watching him as Captain America, and then I just watched for the first time after years Snowpiercer. He kills it in Snowpiercer.
Yeah,
And I guess I wouldn't have considered him that much if I hadn't have seen him be such a great Captain America. And like, I think you and I both agree, I know we've talked about this before outside of this, was Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah, that. Well, you mean as the character or the
As
movie?
a character, him playing, and his acting in that movie as Captain America and just as an actor,
Oh yeah, it's
I
incredible.
mean, nailed it.
It really elevates him.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much all I've heard for rumors as well, and I think that's pretty much the good bulk of Moon Knight. He's a pretty interesting guy. To go along with it, Blue Moon's a great beer. We are not sponsored by them. We have been drinking the beer the entire podcast. Would recommend it to anybody. Doug, you had a fun experience this weekend, didn't you?
So based on, I know that we're going to put this out in a few weeks, but as far as recording, I saw Birds of Prey, The Emancipation of One Harley Quinn this last weekend.
Wait, is that the full title of that
That's
movie?
the full title. Birds of Prey,
I
The
had no
Emancipation
idea.
of One Harley Quinn.
Huh.
Theaters have been calling it just Harley Quinn because people...
See, you know what's
have been
funny?
getting
I just thought it was
confused.
called Birds of Prey.
Yeah, people have been calling it just Harley Quinn because people have been getting confused. And I got to say,
course.
after seeing that, best DC movie so far. As far as like
Really?
this new iteration, like the DCEU, I'm talking about like Man of Steel from the beginning of that Man of Steel point on. Best one so far.
Now, is this including, or are you forgetting about Wonder Woman? Or is this with Wonder Woman in consideration?
This is with Wonder Woman was my favorite, and this moved it to a very close second.
Okay.
And I think because this is what Suicide Squad could have and should have been. Because with Suicide Squad,
Not
they
awful.
reshot it, and they took out a lot of what could have made it great. It was gory. It was funny. Margot Robbie absolutely kills it.
She is fantastic. She is incredibly good at that role.
And the side characters. I'm blanking on her name off the top of my head right now. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as the Huntress. She's amazing in it. I can't remember her name either, but the woman who plays Black Canary kills it. The movie is just fantastic. It's fun. They did a good job. It's weird, which I like. You're kind of in Harley Quinn's head, so there's moments like it'll break into song for like 20 seconds.
Oh, that's awesome. I love when they do that.
Like there's a scene where I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but there's a scene where she's
spoiler alert.
In a chair and she gets punched, and then when she gets hit, it cuts to her like breaking into song in this big dance number.
Oh, I love when they do
again.
things
It goes
like
back
that.
to her being in the chair. And it's just weird moments of you're kind of in her
Give me
head.
one spoiler for that minute. When she gets punched and she goes back to it, is there a record scratch? You're like,
I don't remember there being, but there might be.
it sounds like a record scratch.
It could be, but it was. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I think no movie is without its faults for sure.
Definitely.
But I think as far as the DC, just comparing it to the rest of the DC movies, I thought it was definitely my favorite one so far. You can't compare it to Wonder Woman because they're so different. You know, Harley Quinn being insane and Wonder Woman being the righteous person that she is.
A little bit different characters.
Yeah, which I have my own theories about the Wonder Woman movie, which we'll go over if we do a Wonder Woman episode.
That'll be a fun one. Love
So,
Wonder Woman.
I'm gonna hold off on my Wonder Woman movie theories. But as far as Harley Quinn goes, I would recommend anyone go see it. And I'm sure you probably have by the time that this comes out.
How many comically incompetent out of 10 would you give it?
I would give it like 7 comicallys.
Okay, that's pretty good. 7 comically is pretty darn good.
Ooh, okay. Can we do that from now on?
Yeah, let's.
Is that
going
to be our thing? We're gonna do. All right. I like that. I
Our
like that a lot.
comicallys out of 10.
I like it.
I'm a fan.
All right. Well, then hold on. Back to you. How many comicallys would you give Moon Knight as a hero?
As a hero? Well, so if we're going from a comical standpoint, I would.
Okay, hold on. So we're gonna encompass comically as a term of just
of good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him a solid 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
And I'm going to preface that by saying I'm a person that when I do 0 out of 10, I legitimately do 0 out of 10. Some people say 0 out of 10, and what they mean is 5 is terrible. I was like, no,
okay.
I consider 5 average.
Yeah.
So I consider him hair above average. I am a big fan of Egyptian mythology, so I think it's super
That's
cool
pretty
that
cool.
he's in
Yeah.
there. I'm a nerd, and I like the phase of the moon, which I'm sure somebody's going to message me on Discord or something, and I'm going to find out that I had waxing and waning backwards. That's going to be a fun moment.
Oh, because see, that would throw the whole thing off,
Wouldn't it? You can still get the point across, though.
Yeah, which my 7 comicallys for the Harley Quinn movie is that I would say if we're only talking DC movies, I'd say 7. Or no, I'd say 9.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
But as far as movies in general, like superhero movies, I'd give it a 7.
Okay.
DC movies, I'd give it a 9.
Okay, then that's a very glowing recommendation.
I liked it.
All right. Yeah, so that was Moon Knight. Talked a little bit about kind of our theories going forward because he's got a show coming up. We talked about Doug's viewing of what was the full title again, Doug?
Birds of Prey, The Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
I get why people abbreviate that. We talked about that. I thought it was a pretty fun time. Be sure to let us know how you liked today's episode.
Yeah, and follow us on Twitter at ComicallyPod. And if you want to leave any comments, questions, concerns, or hero ideas that you really want to see, just let us know.
We're always looking for input. All right, thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.